All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live show for Glow by Raven Kennedy, the fourth and for now final book in the Plated Prisoner series. Um, and also the last book in the series for this first series in my book club, which is so exciting. So
That's
first, just
exciting.
Mel, thank you for being a part of the kickoff of FanRo Book Club.
Thank you for asking.
But we are gonna start with some non-spoilery thoughts. So this is gonna be very brief because we're so far in. It's hard. But just in case, what did you think, Mel? Rating and
Nerf. I literally just finished it. It took me 2 months to read, and I have no good excuse. I'm not in law school. So, I think it's a low 3. I enjoyed the beginning parts and the kind of history that we were getting on a certain character. Then I felt like the entire book just kind of stopped and did nothing for about 600 pages. And then the ending was super rushed, which has been a problem for me in every single book. And there was a few things about their relationship in this one that I just really didn't appreciate because of things that had happened in previous books. So yeah, I have mixed feelings on it. What about you?
so I think I settled on like a 3.5 for this one. So it's definitely my least favorite
Yeah.
out of the four of them, which kind of sucks because I feel like my enjoyment was slowly increasing with every book. So I was really hoping this would be like
Mm-hmm.
the 4.5 or even potentially 5 for me. That
Yeah.
was a little bit of a stretch, but I was hoping for like a 4 or
Yeah.
4.5, but it just like didn't get there. And what's funny is I had the opposite kind of experience as you. I feel like I was not really enjoying the first half of it. Aside from the history that we got on that character,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
everything else to me, I just like did not care about.
Yeah. I didn't either.
Yeah, like I didn't care about what was going on. And again, with Raven Kennedy, like as soon as you hit that 50% mark, things start picking up. And then so like the second half of the book, I really, really did enjoy, but that first half, I was just like, what is the point? Where is the plot? Like, what are we supposed to be rooting for?
You're just meandering around and trying to get, I guess, history and lore, but you don't have to. I don't know. I felt like we weren't really getting a lot of history and lore. We were just talking at one another. And I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't care. And
Yeah,
so
and I
maybe it
feel
was
like
80% for me that it picked up.
mhm. And there are definitely like better ways to kind of weave that into the story rather than having it so like split. Like first half, here's all
Mm-hmm.
of this background information about
Yeah.
certain people and things, and then now we're gonna jump back into the plot. Like you could have used the plot to reveal all of this information. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that didn't really happen. But
I think I think for me, this series is doing something similar to the From Bud Nash series, where she started out as like a romance, and that's kind of what it was supposed to be at its core. And then as you went on, you can tell the author is trying to weave in all of these very intricate world building and plot lines, but they just haven't plotted it out enough for it to fully like make sense.
mhm.
Kind of where I'm at. I'm like, okay, stop just trying to throw things in later books because you realize there's plot holes 4 books ago. I mean, I
Yeah,
I kind of felt like that was what was happening in a lot of this.
yeah, that's I can definitely see that. Um, but yeah, those are kind of well, I'm trying to like put up the spoilers banner, but those are kind of like pretty much. I mean, is there anything else non-spoilery that you have? I think yeah. So just hopping on to say, hey, I'm only a little over halfway
You
through.
made it
Well, I got
far.
to chapter 36. I tried to finish on time, but I didn't.
What Ashley was on Gleam yesterday, so halfway through Glow today. That's impressive. Or maybe
Oh
it wasn't
my
yesterday.
god.
Maybe it was today. It was some. Maybe it was Monday. But even still, like she read Gleam
Oh,
and half of Glow before today.
I remember. I think was she the one that messaged in the Discord about this?
I think I saw it in Rice Sprints, maybe.
In Rise
Maybe
Sprints? Okay.
Run Sprints.
But dang. Oh
Either
my God.
way, impressive. No matter where
That,
you posted it.
yeah. I'm loving what I've read so far. Okay, so different opinion. I would love to hear your thoughts once you finish
Yeah, for sure.
because clearly we have different views. That would be interesting. And hello. Okay, let's
Where you wanna
talk
start?
spoilers. Let's get into it. Okay, I have like some notes that I was like, I kind of want to talk about this stuff. So let's talk about this mysterious character with all the background history. So we got to know about Slade, which was pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
we got to follow him when he was a little kid, learn about his mom, his dad. That was really, really interesting. And kind of how his powers came to be and seeing him kind of learn how to control. What did you kind of think about that whole
I
chunk
thought
of
that
information?
was really, really well done. I think that that's probably the only time where I have really seen her give a lot of depth and character development in a reasonable amount of time. Because I feel
Mhm.
like she does tend to do the drawn out thing. And I just felt like we got a very good look at who he was and why he was the way that he was. There's other bits that come from that I don't really think I follow, but we'll get into that later. But as just a general rule, I think I really appreciated what she was trying to do in those flashbacks. I kind
Mhm.
of wish we had gotten them a little bit earlier, um, just so that we could really like have that emotional impact. But I do like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I feel like this kind of goes with the whole like she's kind of splitting up what she's trying to do into
Mhm.
chunks versus
Yeah,
kind of weaving it all
agree.
together. And if it just felt like she's like, okay, now this fourth book is going to be about Slade, whereas like third book was about this. And it's like there's not really a lot of like connection happening.
Yeah.
Um, but I did like that we finally did get to learn kind of more about him and see kind of not even just like his powers and how that came to be, but just like the dynamics of his
Mhm.
family
I
and
really liked his interactions with Riot in
his
this
brother.
part, like, the brotherly interactions a lot.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it was just it was really well done. I think the sibling dynamics were really fleshed out, and I feel like Slade's character, like you said, is one of the few that I feel like I actually kind of got some sort of development, got some sort of depth, um,
Yeah.
and I really like that. Um, kind of going off of that, we can talk about we finally learned why he's called Rip.
Hmm.
Thoughts, because
Hmm.
that was kind of, in my opinion at least, a little over the top.
Uh-huh.
Thought.
I have multiple thoughts. The first one is that's cool. That's my first thought. My
Mhm.
second thought is that has nothing to do with his actual powers. So the only way that I see that being plausible is because of the clash between his powers and his father's, in which case I can see that just the pure energy ripping a hole in the world. However, she decided to debunk that theory in the end, and it pissed me off.
Mhm.
So we'll get to that later. I
Yeah.
have complex thoughts on that.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it was over the top because
Yeah,
I had the same thoughts. Like, I didn't understand how we got from kind of point A to point B with his
I don't think
powers.
she knew.
Yeah, I feel like they just kind of wanted to throw I think she just wanted to throw in this mystery with where Aaron came from
Mhm.
because once Aaron learns about why Rip is called Rip, she starts thinking, is that how I got here? And,
Right.
I feel like it was just kind of put in there to add that kind of layer to her character
Mhm.
without really thinking through what it meant.
I don't
Um,
think it would have bothered me if the ending hadn't been the way that it was. It almost seems like it was purely a plot device to set up a way to get her out of crap once again.
mhm.
I'm just like, okay, but the two things don't meet up. His rotting power should not be able to rip holes in the world. And if it can, you need to give me some more background to make that make sense.
Yeah.
You can't just add a new power because you need something. Because it's kind of like the situation where in the third book, all of a sudden Oren's powers only worked during the day and they didn't work at night. And I was like, the literal only reason you decided to include that was because you got to a point you were like, oh crap, they can't have sex during the day if I don't fix this. So let me, or at all. So let me fix this. I felt like this was a similar situation. How do I get her out of this? Oh, I'll just toss this in.
Yeah. And also, not even just to like get her out of the situation that she was in, but also just to have some sort of further plot for book 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the next book is Gold, and it's going to be coming out sometime next year.
I wonder, is it, or does she mean the next FanRo book club? Pick.
Oh, it's Kingdom of the Wicked, and it's next month, and you can join the Discord. And that's kind of usually where I do the announcements, or follow me on Instagram. I'll probably do a community post about it sometime soon too. So lots of different ways you can find out what the next series is going to be. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question, whether it was about this series or the next series. But
either way,
yeah,
yeah.
So yeah, the rip thing, it was cool how that happened, and I mean, we hate his father. He's the worst. Yeah. And so kind of seeing that like clash create a literal rip in the world.
And I don't think it would have bothered me. The actual rip part didn't bother me as long as it was contingent on the clashing of powers. Because okay, listen, I've been on a Stranger Things kick recently, but have you seen Stranger Things?
Not season 4.
No, I'm talking about season 1. Like I'm on the beginning.
Yes.
But that's kind of the theory. There is a massive amount of energy rips a hole in the world. To me, that part made sense. It was the ending that didn't make sense.
Yeah. So we can kind of talk about the ending because it relates to what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just like he was obviously in a lot. I'm trying to like figure out how, if there even was like some sort of energy colliding in that end to make that rip to have her kind of escape, because like at first I was thinking maybe his energy combined with like hers coming out, because she was in that like cage that was like kind of extracting her gold.
Yeah.
But there was no like connection. And then maybe I thought that it was with the boy who like put up the shield or whatever. So maybe it was like that, but there was no like actual way for him to do it. It almost seemed like he was just very emotional, and it kind of just like floated out of him.
I think that's what I meant by the ending just seemed very rushed. I mean, we spent this whole book doing essentially nothing. And then in the last 20 to 30%, everything that you've been just talking about the whole time suddenly has to happen all at once. I'm like, we really should have devoted lots of pages to this conflux and to the conflict. And I think if she had devoted more time, then you would have been able to see, okay, was there a clash of power? Was there this? Instead of just being like, wait, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely went by too fast. Like not enough time to even grasp what was going on. Definitely agree there. So we can kind of let's talk about Arin. So obviously she is not conscious in the beginning, which was, to me, it was fine because we were learning more about Slade anyways, and I feel like adding her being awake sooner would have just kind of clashed with that. But after she's up, she starts training and kind of learning how to gain her balance again. And I personally really liked those kind of moments and seeing her kind of struggle without her ribbons and kind of constantly thinking about it. But kind of what I didn't like was how Raven Kennedy spent so much time showing that struggle. And then when Arin later is trying to get control of her powers, it happens so quickly.
Agreed completely.
Yeah.
it should have been more of a struggle. And even if you had to do some kind of time jump just to let us know that this time had passed, but she has a tendency to want things to happen in very minute chunks of time, and sometimes it doesn't make sense.
For sure. Yeah, I just feel like it just went from her never knowing, like, kind of how, I don't know, her just not having a lot of experience with her own power when she was with Midas, just kind of only doing things for him, didn't really have a chance to kind of explore herself with it, to complete explosion, no control, and then just no access to it, and then all of a sudden she's like a master of it. It just like kept
Yeah.
jumping around so much. And like, even I think it was one scene where she had kind of like started to learn how to control her powers, and Rot was like trying to get her to like kiss him and show that she has control. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like even though he has like such a strong belief that yes, she has control, like that's great, I'm glad he has so much faith in her, but just seeing how she exploded so quickly,
Mm-hmm.
like I just think it was so unjustified for him to try to force her to do
Yeah.
something that you still don't know 100% if she can come
Yep.
back from.
Yep.
And
And
so that
to me, that was a little bit of a recurring theme.
mm-hmm.
That's one thing that kind of more toward when we were starting to rev up to the climax of the book. The fourth advisor comes, the brother comes, and he's like, "You got to bring her to the complex, man. Like, this has got to happen." And he is so adamantly against it that he will not listen to a word that she has to say. And when you spend 3 books with a man that will not listen to anything that she has to say and completely writes off all of her opinions, for him to turn around, and even though he's wanting to protect her, to be saying, well, I'm going to be a different man, I'm going to be a different type of person. He treated her the exact same way, and then he would even try to like completely distract her with sex, and then had sex with her, left her in the room, and intentionally didn't wake her up so he could do whatever the hell he wanted. And I'm like, you don't get to spend 3 books talking about how crappy this one guy is, build him up as to be an angel, and then let him just turn into the same person and completely ignore that entirely. Like, if we had
Mm-hmm.
talked about it and she had recognized it and that was a source of conflict, okay, maybe. But we didn't even acknowledge it. And I was like, dude,
Yeah.
not my friend.
This book made me really dislike their relationship and
Yes.
dislike him. It just started to brew these toxic tendencies, just,
Mhm.
and especially because I think at one point she was talking about how she's never been independent and she
Yeah.
wants to experience all of these things. And one, he immediately started like trying to have sex with her, and I was like, dude, like she's
Yeah.
trying to talk to you, like calm
Yeah.
down. And
Yeah.
two, like she has a point, right? Like, yeah, she obviously cares deeply about him, and he cares deeply about her, and that's great. But I feel like because she did jump, like how they were saying, jump from one king to another, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we still have not gotten any character development from Auren,
Agreed.
because she is just needing another man to rescue her, needing another man to be there and tell her what to do and kind of comfort her and take care of
Go
her. And
along with it.
yeah, and she, like, I feel like is almost going through this Stockholm syndrome type situation again, where she thinks that this is okay.
Mm-hmm. But
Like the
it's
way
not
they're doing.
addressed. You spend so much time addressing that toxic relationship, and that is the whole point of the first 2 books and really half the third, to just basically revert back to that because you think it makes him a brooding, sexy, I don't know, badass individual. And I'm like, yeah, but you can't, you're contradicting yourself, and it does not make sense. Pick one. It's bad or it's not, but you still have to either acknowledge it if you're going to do it. But yeah, the more we talk, the more I want to lower my rating to a 2.5. It just grates on my nerves that, and again, I think this is partially a indie lack of editor to see these kind of things, because I feel like somebody that was used to editing a book will be able to go, wait, issue here. We need to at least address this. But it's hard in your own writing to see that. And she writes well. Like there's no issues with the structure of her writing at all. But she's contradicting herself a lot, and it's getting on my nerves.
Yeah, I don't know. I had so much hope for this fourth book, and I just feel like the further into the series we get, the more everything that's happening just seems pointless.
Yep.
And just like why are we even having another book at this point type situation? And I just like don't.
And it's supposed to be the big finale, but there is so much that she attempted to set up in this book that it's either going to be really long and drawn out and everything at the end like it has been being, or the whole thing is just going to feel really rushed.
Yeah.
Just don't see how in the world you're supposed to make it a fantasy romance and then address everything that you brought up at the end of this book. And speaking of pointless, what did you think about Orskik and Rissa's relationship? Because I have weird opinions or mixed, I guess, opinions on that one.
Yeah, I mean, pointless is a good word for it to me. I don't know. It was, I mean, seeing which we don't know if she survived yet or not, right? It was just
I mean, I assume so.
Yeah, I figured when he was like, you got to take her up to I can help with medical stuff.
Yeah.
I assume, yeah. But the only part about the relationship I liked was seeing his kind of emotions when he saw her body. I feel like that got some sort of emotion out of me because we had spent so much time with Risa as a character. So even though I wasn't like super attached to her, I feel like I still got to know her to an extent and saw kind of her relationship kind of changing and shifting with Aaron, seeing how much she cared for the other saddle. But in terms of like Poppy, yeah, in terms of like their relationship, just didn't really make sense.
I think so. Rissa to me was a character that was intended to be there for Aaron's character development. Like she wasn't in her own character, but there was no point in introducing her own romantic relationship unless she is setting up sort of spin-off series.
Okay,
that's the only way I see that making any sense.
That's an interesting point. I didn't even.
I don't think I like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't read that. Like I feel like,
but I feel like that could be a possibility. Like the first thing I thought was, oh man, like it's not. It was so barely touched upon too. And they're together, but they're avoiding each other for most of this journey back and forth. And then suddenly he has a visceral reaction to her getting stabbed. Like, yeah, it's no good. But he acted like mated fairy from Sarah J. Maas. Like, calm down, dude. You've known her for a week.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah. I feel like if she wanted to have that be even somewhat important to the plot or anything that was happening, it definitely had to be more than just their sexual tension and all that. Like I feel like his reaction, while it made me really sad to see it, definitely didn't align with like what their relationship actually was. Because to me, it felt almost just very sexual tension and potentially an underlying layer of do we like each other, do we not type thing.
Right. Again, it was
you're saying his reaction was like, oh my God, I'm in love with this person and she just been stabbed.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay. The last like note that I have that I wanted to talk about was kind of something that one confused me a little bit, and I don't know if I just like didn't comprehend it or if it wasn't supposed to make I don't know, but just the whole idea of how the people on I can't remember what the place is called, but they can't leave. That
Aurelia or something like that.
Yeah, Aurelia. How they can't like leave and how they're stuck there and why they're like Aaron's getting like weird vibes from them. So I didn't really like, I understood kind of that it had to do with like the rip
Yeah.
and kind of drag them, but like I didn't fully understand the nuances of what was going on with that.
I think that she was sensing like the otherness and maybe the kinship of where she came from. But to me, it sounded more like, it doesn't really make sense why Riot and Rip were allowed to leave if you play with this theory. But my thought was they were so inherently connected to the other world that basically life was incompatible on Earth, and if they got too far away from their world essentially, or the rip, that it just caused massive amounts of illness because they were not compatible with the world. Is
Okay.
kind of my impression. But then why can Rip and Riot and Auron go away from it? Plot holes for convenience.
Yeah. That's why I had such a hard time understanding kind of what was going on, is because it wasn't clear cut, because we had those people who are allowed to leave, but then we also have majority of people who aren't.
And he even says, yeah, we can leave. We don't know why. And I'm like,
yeah. And again, I feel like she's like maybe going to tell us in the 5th book. And I just feel like this is just like an ongoing trend of like her throwing things in there and then like briefly touching on them later.
yeah.
3 books down, and I'm just like, I need it to make sense now, or at least have enough to build like some sort of intrigue for a potential reveal later.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's one of those things, like, other authors will do this well, where they'll make something very insignificant mean so much later on, but you can't make something super significant insignificant to try to make it significant later. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously a big deal, so acknowledge that it's a big deal and that maybe there's more that we don't know. Foreshadow it, but you have to acknowledge it.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just feel like for the majority of this book, I was either bored or confused.
Same.
And that's like the best way to describe this entire book. And I feel like this entire series too. Like, yeah, there's definitely been highlights. I've really enjoyed the previous books. I'm not like downplaying that, but I can definitely see the flaws and see how she has these habits that started in book 1 and just have not gone away.
Yeah, too. I wish that if she were going to make it, I wish that it was, first of all, just one point of view. I wish it was just Auron's story and Auron's point of view, and we didn't try to make it too complex. We stuck to the fantasy romance roots. Because I think that you can make a really good, compelling story and not overcomplicate it to the point where you have all of these plot holes and conveniences that you have to stick in. But if you're going to make it multi-POV, lean into the multi-POV. You can't do 98% of the book in Auron's point of view or Slade, and then get 2 chapters from Orsic or whatever his name is for no reason. And then like 3 paragraphs from Melina, who is suddenly going to play this huge role later on. I'm like, okay, either she needs to, from the very beginning, be a character we are established and care about and are learning about, or don't include it.
Don't have her. Yeah.
Don't just, you can let her do things on that side of the world, but meh.
Yeah. And that's something that I forgot that I did want to talk about was her with the whole like bridge and the Fae coming, whatever. I was just like,
how did they get there?
I was just
did, I guess.
confused. I was like, what just happened? Like, what is going on? There was too much. She was trying to juggle too much into this one book, and she like smushed it all in like the last 30% of it.
Yeah.
So I was like, what? It was so hard to like keep things straight in my mind.
You've got to like foreshadow some of this. Like in book 1, we should have had a conversation about these 3 queens and how this was like lore that they knew about, but they thought it was just a fairy tale. And then suddenly you find out it wasn't a fairy tale. Like all of that would be fine, but you can't wait until the last 20% of the very last book to be, oh, by the way, all of this stuff now you need to learn about in this world.
Yeah. And like the random assassin shows up, tells her, don't do what the twins are wanting you to do. And then she's like, I'm still gonna do it. And then like, I was just like, this is so unnecessary. Like,
Yeah.
why are we having this assassin conversation? Like, the reader, us as the readers, we're not dumb. We know that these twins are up to no good.
Right.
That something fishy is going on. We may not know what is going on because, again, nothing was foreshadowed, so we have no idea. But like, you don't need to hold our hand through things that are obvious and then just like leave us in the dark in things that are so complex and confusing that nothing makes sense.
Yeah. Because I felt like I did understand her motivations. I knew that that's always been because of her previous points of view that we really should have gotten more of, that was always a point of contention. That's why she wasn't made the true queen. That's why she had to marry Midas, is because she was the only one without magic and she was so desperate for it. But she travels with someone, has no clue where she's going. We don't really get any of that context. She's there for a total of like 15 pages, maybe. And I'm like, okay, well, this is cool. If you're going to do it, tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I feel like I'm jumping around, but the religious aspect that they decided to throw in there, I'm like, no.
Oh, yeah. Like,
no.
holy, like, we're going to cleanse you. And I was just reading this, like,
where
what?
did that come from? Yeah. I was like, this makes no, you can tell me that there's a religion in the Fifth Kingdom and we can talk about that and you can show me how the queen believes all of this thing and everything else. And okay, that would have been fine. I'd had no problem with it. But all of a sudden the queen has gone through cleansing and now, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No.
And like this whole, so like Midas's death and kind of avenging that falls on this religious whole thing that's happening. So like no one else is doing anything.
Right.
But this one extreme religion is like, we're gonna take matters into our own hands. And I was like,
that we've never heard of before.
Yeah, I was like, where are you coming from? Like, what is your relationship to everything? Like, how do you fit in? And I was like, I was trying to like understand why it was so relevant, like why this kingdom was so important.
And for context, like, we're what, 1,000 pages deep into this series by the time that's introduced?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Part of me is like, do I even want to finish it because it's annoying me? Or I do want to know. But at the same time, I'm like, your focus is in the wrong places. You either need to do what you're doing or like, don't include that stuff. If you're doing the thing over here, don't include the stuff over here. Like,
yeah,
she's just trying to do too much.
Yeah, and that's just, I feel like she was trying to do a lot, but at the same time, the books were so long that it was almost like it just didn't like translate.
Agreed.
Like, if you're trying to do a lot, you would think that the books would be long because you have a lot kind of to play out. But at the same time, the books felt like they were just too long.
Yeah.
Like, not a lot happened. So it's like, it doesn't even make sense how so much is going on and yet nothing's happening.
Yeah. I think she's just not weaving well. She's not a very good, like, technically her writing especially for indie, is very good. It flows well. It makes sense. It's not hard to read. But the weaving of the story and putting snippets in at certain places so that you can come back around to things later, I just don't think it was plotted well enough for that. I think she knew what she was trying to do, and I think she knew where she wanted to go from point A to point B to point C, but the intricacies in between were not well plotted.
For sure. 100% agree.
Which is aggravating as a reader.
Yeah. I mean,
especially a high fantasy reader. I think that's the problem, is if you're a romance reader, and romance doesn't need those intricacies. It's not supposed to have them. It's fine. That's not a dig against romance. It's just not what it's supposed to be. It's more of a relationship type of story. Whereas in high fantasy, we are used to those plot devices. Like, especially if you've read Sanderson, you're used to something on page 1 mattering 1,700 pages later, and it's huge, but you never need it because it was plotted so well throughout. So I think she's trying to blend those two genres together. And unfortunately, depending on what you're used to reading, you're going to pick up on more than the other. I would just made it a FanRo. I think I'd loved it a lot more if it was just, I don't want to say straightforward fantasy romance, because fantasy romance can be very complicated, but a more true to itself fantasy romance, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. I feel like she definitely tried to lean more heavily into the high fantasy, and it just didn't really work.
No, sadly, no.
Yeah.
You're not. No. Just see your little ear. Quit.
Oh. Oh. Oh my gosh, she's so cute.
She's not gonna like this. You were fine. I'm not gonna let you go now. Ollie just jumped up and looked at her like, what? Sorry, that was your kitty interruption.
You're good. It was necessary.
We'll break up some of this negativity with some cat.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of all I had. Is there anything else that you feel like we didn't talk about? I feel like we got most of the like main.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, I hate to be negative about it, especially since as a general whole, I think I've been very meh about the series. But at the same time, like, it makes for a good discussion.
Oh, let's see.
Not that extreme. No, we're close. we're not that far. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're on a solid, like, middle of the road. Don't regret reading them, but they need some improvement.
Yeah.
I think I'm going with like a 2.5 for this one in the end after talking about it, because I was undecided when we started, but 2.5 for me is still, it's less than, I guess, average, but not regrettable. Does that make sense? Like, it sounds harsher than I mean for it to.
Yeah. No, I think I'm definitely gonna give it a 3.
Yeah.
I think for me is a 3.
That day.
Yeah. Which
there's hope for book 5.
Yeah.
I know. It's going to be like 900 pages long.
If it is, I honestly don't know if I'm going to read it.
I know. I don't see how it can be any less than what this one was, though. Not trying to do, because she's now got to work this whole plot of Auron being in another world. So now you've got to introduce an entire new world. Then you've got to deal with all this magic stuff that you introduced with Queen Melina. And you got to get everybody to that point. So they've got to travel over there. And then you got to have whatever we're supposed to wrap up this plot. What is the plot?
I don't know.
What are we trying to accomplish in the last book other than to save Auron's ass? Like,
no idea. Absolutely no idea. I think
I didn't realize that I had no clue until I went to say that.
Yeah. Because first 3 books, we had a point, trying to escape Midas.
Yeah.
That was, and then he's dead, so now what?
Is it just finding the 6th kingdom? Because we haven't even talked about the 6th kingdom.
Yeah, we haven't. So there's a lot to unpack in the next book. I have no idea how she's going to do it.
I'm a little scared, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Us high fantasy girls having a hard time. Even romance readers, I think, could struggle with this one because it's not a romance at its core, too. Like, there's nothing wrong with romance or romance readers. I'm not at all, because I like romance. I'm not at all trashing that. It's 2 different styles of writing and storytelling.
Yeah. I feel like whichever way you lean, there's issues.
Right?
There's issues. But okay, that kind of wraps up our live show for Glow. Thank you to those who were here. Thank you, Mel, once again. Really good discussions. Don't forget, we've got Kingdom of the Wicked coming up next month. The reading sprints for that will be October 21st. I don't know, sometime late October. I will let you guys know. And then live show sometime in November. But I hope everyone has enjoyed so far. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. I'll see you in our next reading sprints or live show. Bye.